Good evening, everybody. This is the Finance Committee. It is February 5th, 2026. I have exactly 4 p.m. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. We have a full quorum here today. We have 4 people Zooming: Roy, Paul, Steve, and Kate. Going to the agenda, is there any public comment? I know I see one person, but no comments. Any comment from the committee? On to item number 3 of the agenda, review and possible vote on minutes of prior meeting, which was, excuse me, January 15th. We were all present for the meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 15th?
I motion for approval.
Okay, I have Fred and Roy.
Yes.
Fred and Roy. Any further discussion on the minutes of January 15th? All in favor of the minutes of January 15th? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Roy, Paul, Kate, and Steve. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Thank you. I'm on to the agenda for number 4, Departmental Budget Review. And before we begin, I just want to say a few words about the fact that we're starting to discuss the budget here today. And I want to make a few comments about some of the things that we're dealing with as we proceed to deal with the budget for the town for this coming fiscal year. At a recent Climate Action Committee meeting that I attended, the Cape Cod Commission noted that Eastham has the lowest median income of any Cape town at $72,700. 32% of the Eastham spend over 30% on their housing.
What was that percent?
32% spend over 30% on housing. The Eastham Elementary School, in a recent packet that I received, I've been going to those meetings, 41% of those students of last year, of which there were 185, are children with economically disadvantaged. We are now in the process of dealing with collective bargaining for the next 3 years. We're just starting with the union contracts. We're aware that the health insurance costs have skyrocketed. Pension assessments have skyrocketed. The education costs have gone up, including special ed costs. And basic inflation is also something that we're dealing with. So I think as we proceed, I just wanted to recommend all of those and comment on all of those things. And I think we need to take that information into stride as we proceed to figure out what our budget will be for the next fiscal year of '27. Does anybody else have any comments to make before we proceed on? The first departmental budget review is the health and environment, and it's on pages 153 to 160. I'll give everybody a chance to pull it up.
And while people are pulling it up, I'll introduce Hillary, our Health and Environment, Director of Health and Environment, and preface, I'll let her go through her budget, but I just wanted to point out, we talk, as we all know, we are going to have overrides this year, or most likely we'll have overrides to keep level services. So you don't, so one of the common things you hear is, well, what have we cut to limit or minimize that? So we have some areas where we have cuts, but mostly what we have is areas of need that we haven't increased. And so one of those areas that Hillary will talk about is historically the Conservation Commission didn't have its own budget. And we've been working with Hillary because she now oversees all of these divisions, Conservation and Health Department. And so that's an area of about $7,000 that we did not include in her budget that ought to be and was asked to be. And also various committees, mostly the Open Space Committee, I believe, have been asking and recommending that we have an assistant conservation agent, which is not part of this budget. So just those are two things that have been asked for that we have not included in our level services budget for this upcoming year. And then after that, I'll turn it over to Hillary to go through her stuff.
What was the first one, Rich? 7,000?
Conservation Commission expenses, a lot of it's legal ads and legal notices. We're getting a lot of those because a lot of actions. And I guess actually one more thing before Hillary gets into, there's been no changes in the staffing or FTEs from prior years. But the salaries in there are the FY26 rates with the proper steps. So just because that's going to be the same for everybody tonight. Everything represents the old rates with the proper grade and step, but we will have new amounts for those grades and steps when we conclude collective bargaining, which is very close. We've got pretty much settled with everybody, but we have to execute what's called memorandums of understanding to make sure that they ratify what we think we've agreed to. And then we bring that to the select board and present it to them to make sure that they're okay to ratify it, then brings it to town meeting. So very close, and we'll have more updates, in another week or two on that process. So with that, I'll turn it over to Hillary.
Okay, well, there's nothing like being the first one to go when we understand how difficult the financial times are. And obviously, our needs are increasing as well. So I tried to level fund the budget as best as possible in the budget that you are looking at, with the understanding that there are additional things that I would like to add in to accommodate the Conservation Commission, because they were not previously included in this budget. There are a number of trainings that they need or like to have throughout the year. There's one Cape Coast conference that some of them like to go to. And then there's the Association of Conservation Commission trainings that are essential for our newer members when they come on board to get them up to speed with rules and regulations. So those are numbers that you don't see in this budget tonight, but they are in a secondary proposed budget that I have here that I can share if that's palatable. I get the sense it might not be so palatable at the moment, so let's just focus on what's in front of you.
And I would just say to that, if the training is needed for a new member, we'll find a way to get it done. I mean, that's the other thing is, we do have a townwide training fund, for instance, and which you saw last meeting where we talked about the administrative budget. So we have some resources that we will manage appropriately if we have a need for the Conservation Commission or others. So, what is really required, what we think might be required to get done, will get done one way or another, whether it's a reserve fund transfer or otherwise.
So that was my question. How much of that training you're talking about, Hillary, is essentially required?
So it's the MACC, the Mass Association of Conservation Commissions, offers fundamental trainings. It's an 8-course series. It's not required per se, but it is essential to give a new member an understanding of what they're doing if they have no experience with conservation commissions or rules or regulations. So it allows them to be better participants in our meetings and just have a solid understanding and gain confidence when they're sitting there making decisions.
And what's the cost per person?
So I think we put in $1,365, and it's a 7-member commission. So there's 7 members.
But is that just for the new members or for the existing?
So some of the existing members haven't taken all of the 8 fundamentals, and we don't force them to take them, so they take them when it's convenient or when it's, works with their schedule. So it would give us a amount of money to allow them to go to training.
So is it something we could spread out over the years? Like a few people do it this year, a few people do it next year?
I think
Are they all
so.
trying to do it at once or?
3 of our members are longstanding members. Some of them occasionally go for additional training, but really this year we brought on a couple new members and they have been going to trainings and conferences. So I wouldn't want to not have money for them to do that, but if we can find that money somewhere else, then we can find it somewhere else. So the big changes in the budget that you're looking at, the budget did increase by a couple $1,000s. And that was because our contracting is going to increase in cost. It's a yearly contract for landfill management testing and PFAS testing and monitoring. So those are two expenses that we will always have because we have a capped landfill and we're required by Mass DEP to routinely monitor. Oh, you're turning, go ahead. I was just going to say, we do have some things going on, so it does require further assessment. So those numbers may go higher in the near future, but we're working with DEP and our consultants on, keeping the numbers in line and only doing the required work.
So
When you say contracts, are they for a period of time? I mean, can you work out something that you pay so much and it covers for 2 or 3 years? And
So these are yearly rates.
okay, that's what I
These are
wanted to know.
yearly rates, and when we find something in the water that we're sampling, so we have monitoring wells all around the landfill. When we find something, we then, depending on what we find, are subject to other rules and regulations which require additional testing and analysis. We hope to never find anything. Sometimes we find some things and we have to go and conduct another environmental assessment to see what's going on.
So for example, and Hillary's, for those following along, if you didn't know, it's page 159 under professional and technical landfill testing and monitoring account. If you look back at the history, historically, we haven't spent all the amount budgeted, but we kept the higher amount of the budget knowing that we had this possibility. And starting last year, we did have additional requirements, and we are now spending those amounts that are budgeted. And as a matter of fact, for this year, for 26, we know now, or that we have some additional requirements, which we'll be finalizing in the next week or two. But I just want to put you on notice now that we're probably going to be about $20,000 short for FY '26. And I asked Hillary just to keep it in this account, and that's likely to come back to you as a reserve fund transfer for the additional testing required. But we're not building that extra that's in there for this year into next year's budget. So another area that we're not increasing that we probably could be increasing.
As you proceed, and you were just saying the reserve, are you sort of keeping track of the amounts of money that you feel we might need to go to the reserve for because we have only the 200,000?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
The only other change I put in for it was to have 2 folks licensed as soil evaluators. One of my staff members did complete the soil evaluator training, so now we have 2 folks at $95 each instead of 1. So that's a professional license.
Can you explain to me what the I'm on page 159 as we're discussing. The nursing services, what exactly does that consist of?
So we have that in the budget in case we have an outbreak. We contract with the VNA to do disease investigation and follow-up. So they reach out to the patients depending on what the scenario is. And we also use that budget line to fund some of the programs that the COA is offering.
What type of programs would that be?
So they do a diabetes program, they do an exercise physiology program, there's a nutrition program,
Health screenings.
there's health screenings,
So.
Nordic walking, which
so-
is
so-
popular.
So you're paying for somebody to have programs at the Council on Aging, is that what you're saying?
Yes. We've always held that budget line in the health department for those purposes.
Under public health programs.
I'm sorry?
It's a public health program,
Yeah.
and it's just convenient that it works through the COA. But
Okay.
I think that's all I've got for you.
Okay. I have some questions.
Yeah.
How many cesspools do we have still?
Oh, you had to ask that. I'm going to just go a little bit backwards here and say the Board of Health is actively reviewing their regulations. That, I don't have that file with me, but part of the new proposed Board of Health regulations is to get rid of all of the cesspools in town, Those in environmentally sensitive areas will be gone within 2 years. Those in uplands or areas outside of environmentally sensitive areas will be gone in 3 years. There's an administrative consent order that's part of this package of regulations that would allow for folks in the Phase 1 sewer district to sign an administrative consent order instead of upgrading from their cesspool to a Title V in the 2-year time period. But your question of how many we have under 300. I feel like it's 200 and, it's 200 and some, it's definitely under 300.
Okay. And based on a question on septic systems, which I asked, I was in touch with you earlier. You used to send out statements, I shouldn't call them statements, you used to send out little postcards.
Postcards.
Telling people that their septic system needed to be
Pumped.
checked. And you're not doing that anymore.
We're not doing that anymore because we got a lot of phone calls from folks saying they received the postcard and they pumped their system. We got more of that than we got of anybody saying, oh, I need to pump my cesspool. So what we try to do is inform and educate as we go instead of spending the money to send out a postcard that didn't really seem useful anymore.
But when you have your septic system done, isn't that information sent to town hall?
Yes, we get that information.
You would know if people had had it done recently.
But we couldn't do a proper mail merge, as I understand it, to get the mail to the right people. So the mail went to everyone.
Because
But we do have that information.
So could we call and ask if we can't
Absolutely.
remember the last time?
Yes,
I
absolutely.
think it was a year ago, but,
Yeah.
a year goes by fast.
Absolutely. And we can also do more outreach, I think, instead of mailing postcards to every household in Eastham. I mean, it might be a good topic for a turnip talk with Kayla to talk about septic system maintenance or what to expect going forward. I think we have better avenues to get information out.
Because I just feel that since we're not sending the postcards out and you're not keeping, well, when they're done, the information comes, but you're not going through that information to say, okay, Mary hasn't had hers done
Yeah,
in 5 years.
we can do that, though. We do have that ability. So we've been researching other projects for the Board of Health regulations. Not to say we can't now go back and research that now that we've researched other things that we needed to tackle first.
So Hillary, there's no regulation that people have to pump their system on a periodic basis.
No, routine practice, if you're using your home full-time, you would want to pump it every 3 years.
Right. I have a couple of neighbors who've never pumped their system.
Yeah.
And so what is the effect of their actions on the other neighbors?
So it really depends on how they use their dwelling, how they use their house, how many people are occupying it. Are they year-round? Are they seasonal? But essentially, you would get a buildup of solids in your tank, and your scum layer would be increased.
So eventually it'll fail.
Eventually, generally, they don't fail from lack of pumping, but they definitely function better when you're pumping them,
Yeah.
It prolongs the life of the,
of the system.
I can't see the people on the Zooming. Can you see whether
they're
anybody?
still here, but they just had to reboot the TV, so they'll be back up.
They'll be back.
We lost them for a minute?
No, they're still here.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Because I can't tell whether they have any questions or not.
Well, I can ask them, is anybody online have any questions?
Anybody Zooming have some questions? Since we can't see you at the moment.
Recording in progress.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, they're there. Do any of you have questions on the Board of Health?
Yeah, Paul's back.
Nobody has any questions?
I have a question on the cesspools for the 2 years and the 3 years. I think you said you're going to have a hearing at the end of February.
Yeah, so we're still working, the Board of Health has had the draft for some time now. We had a workshop.
I listened to it today.
Oh,
at the
good.
gym.
Okay, so we had a workshop. It's taken
was
us a
good.
long
Yeah.
time to get through all of the content. We did go through and update a lot of sections, whether it was just language or things that have changed or policies that shifted to regulation. So there's a lot there. So it's taken us a while. And so we workshopped last month. We're going to workshop again this month. We did notify the Eastham part-time residents that this was going on as well, so they have an opportunity to participate. And then my hope, because we have the growth neutral regulation in there, which we need for our SRF funding.
Ask you about that. Yep.
That this is done by April, because that would line up nicely with everything else going on. So the state also has a copy of the draft regulations, just so they could see that the growth neutral language was in there.
So when did you say the next workshop?
The next workshop is the last Thursday of February.
I saw that.
I want to say it's the 26th or 27th.
And Mary, we have a question when you're ready.
Okay.
Just one more follow-up. So for the 2 and 3 years, do you think that's going to be fairly challenging, like financially and getting contractors to do all those cesspools?
I don't
or is
think
it
so, because we
realistic?
don't have that many.
Yep.
So we don't have hundreds of thousands of these.
It's probably like the mid 200s, I think.
Yeah,
I thought I
the-
saw an article.
The other big change that we're thinking of, which I think you heard in the workshop that just might be interesting to share, is that we're going to look at 78 code systems along environmentally sensitive areas and require possibly an inspection there if the board votes that that's palatable to them. We got a lot of calls from folks this past summer and the summer before when we have beach closures, wondering what's going on.
That's why I'm asking.
You know, is this coming from a septic system? Is this coming from old layers of peat? Is there a sewage overflow somewhere? So that's where we focused our research this winter, was seeing where there's 78 code systems, where there's 95 code systems, and trying to strike up a balance of what makes the most sense that isn't cost prohibitive to people, because all of this obviously costs expensive.
So the town of Eastham camera is not on? We can't, those of us that are on Zoom are seeing a black screen.
Rich is working
And
on it.
Hillary, you froze up.
I think we're working on it.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of it.
Yeah,
that-
we weren't aware of it. Thank you, Kate.
Where is it?
So Hillary, of the ones that need to be replaced in these timeframes, do we know how many are gonna have to go IA versus can still go Title V?
Yes, we do know that, because I know how many are in environmentally sensitive areas and how many are not. I didn't bring those numbers with me tonight because I didn't know we'd be talking about it, but I can email them off to you
When
guys.
do we notify those people that they're in that situation?
So we first need to have a regulation, right? So we've been talking about the cesspools for, I don't know, I feel like since I came to town at this point. So we've reached out to all of the cesspool owners. I don't know if it was a year ago or 2 years ago at this point, but we did notify them once. We have that list, and it is some drop off over time, obviously, so there aren't as many anymore. But once we have a regulation, we'll set an effective date, and then we'll go from that effective date on, and we'll notify, obviously, the residents that have this situation.
Thank you.
So if somebody needs the IA because they're in a nitrogen-sensitive area, that's going to be an expensive proposition for them.
Correct. But they've had, I think I've been here 3 years, maybe. We've been talking about it for a long time, and our environmentally sensitive areas have not changed. So if they knew 3 years ago when we started talking about this, they at least know that it's coming. And there is low-interest loans available through the county, so there is financing options available to help folks. There's the tax rebate that we talk about also.
So you feel that everybody that's in a nitrogen-sensitive area that would need to have their septic system replaced is aware at this point?
Well, we did a mailing to them to tell
okay, you
them
did a mailing to- okay.
that their cesspool, we're looking at phasing out cesspools. Did I specifically tell all of those in environmentally sensitive areas that they would need IA? No, I did not. But we opened the door to conversation, and, we take calls, we take emails, we talk to all kinds of people. So, happy to discuss it with anyone at any time.
I'm just, as I think we're all aware, the IA systems can be very expensive, and
Yeah, and
did we find out at the last minute that that's what you've got to get could be mind-boggling for people.
for sure. So they'll definitely have 2 years. And then, of course, the Board of Health can grant waivers or extensions if they're so inclined and there's a hardship. The Board of Health has a lot of power to do what is appropriate, and so they do have the ability to grant extensions and variances to their regulation, depending on what the scenario is.
Okay. Anybody on the Zoom with questions? I have
I
another.
have a question.
Oh,
with
go ahead,
respect-
Roy.
A question with respect to personnel. Two positions were added from the Community Development Department in fiscal year '24. Were those positions counted in fiscal year '25 in Health and Environment Department budget?
Fiscal year 25.
Page 158.
For the salaries?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, Roy, they were.
Okay.
So they're not new positions to the town, they're just positions that used to be in community
I
development.
understand. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And I have a question. I know the CPA committee just recently approved $193,000 for Herring Pond. And I was in touch with you, and I appreciate your response. There are some other ponds in town that have some issues. Based on what you told me, it doesn't look like they're as bad as Herring Pond, but they need
True.
some assistance.
True.
What is the town's position on doing that work?
So we are still studying the results. We got the sediment sampling done, and we were supposed to have a vegetation survey done in the fall, early fall, but the contractor dropped the ball on that, so they're coming back in the spring to do vegetation survey at Schoolhouse Minster. That's one place we know we need to do additional hydro raking. We have the aerator in there that's currently frozen over, so we've been taking in a lot of calls about that too. But it's just been so cold that we've had
operate.
unforeseen issues, so we've had the contractor out. So Great Pond and Schoolhouse Minster Pond are on our radar for projects, but I did not want to put a project forward until I had analyzed all of the data to validate the need for the project. That being said, our limnologist who we've worked with has been working for us for several years, worked for Jane, has retired, and so we're in the process of tracking down a new limnologist. That's someone who studies the pond biology that we're comfortable with, that is conservative enough to have the same values that we have and want to do treatment when treatment is needed. So we've got a couple irons in the fire there, looking for a contractor to work with us. So we have nothing to propose at this moment except additional sampling and monitoring, which is ongoing.
And once you get that information and decide that work needs to be done, how would that be paid for?
So I imagined we were going to go back to the CPA. Sorry, but that was the plan. If grants are available, obviously we'll look for that too. The hydro raking is on the less expensive side, obviously. Any kind of pond treatment is on the more expensive side. So we are going to do the permitting for Great and Herring at the same time,
I saw
just
that.
so we have that done.
In place.
Yeah, and then we'll come forth for treatment at some point if it's warranted. But I don't want to put a number out there that isn't going to be close to accurate, so I'd rather hold back. Nothing is needed today, so we're not doing anything today, but something will be needed in the future.
And I just say, so a lot of this goes under the purview of wastewater and all that stuff, so it's probably, if we could accommodate it within our existing funds, we would, but it's probably most likely a capital budget item. And so Hillary, just a reminder that whether we think CPA or a grant
Yeah.
are going to fund it, we should get it on our capital plan and just show that it's funded by another source, just so it's on the radar of everybody. And, NRCS
Yep.
grants, anything like that.
Yeah.
One last question. In the past, we talked about a little bit about fertilizer restrictions in town. Towns have done that. Where is that in the?
Where is fertilizer? So the Board of Health Regulations has a fertilizer regulation. It's a best management practice. The enforcement is nearly impossible, and we're not permitted by the state to have anything more strict at this time because we cannot be stricter than what the state has.
But what did Orleans do?
Orleans,
Well, we have the similar article, and it's going to go in front of the select board at an upcoming meeting. It will be either sponsored by the select board or a petition, one or the other. And it's basically to ask for special legislation to ban fertilizers. The problem with that is that's not the state law, so it's unlikely to pass, because you're allowed to sell products. So,
Isn't that what Orleans did?
right, but it was to adopt the special legislation, which then they sent to the legislature and has to go through, so
hasn't.
they're likely not to pass it.
Oh, it won't
But I think the idea is if we had multiple towns, that maybe it gains a little bit more steam.
I think the other piece of it is education. So as part of our CPA application that we just put in for Herring Pond, we're going to be doing outreach to pond front owners about fertilizer application as well. So a lot of it comes down to folks choosing to do the right thing, and I think a number of us here in Eastham would choose to do the right thing, so.
Thank you.
And you just mentioned the information that we'll be putting together as far as the Herring Pond is concerned. Maybe that information should be sent to everybody that's around a pond.
Absolutely.
Not just Herring Pond.
No, that was the plan. The
Yeah,
plan was
okay,
to use
okay,
the
good.
educational document for everyone,
Yeah,
but it's
okay.
going to be created around this
Yeah,
project.
Right, yeah, okay.
We can put it on the list for Kayla to do a podcast on fertilizer.
For a fertilizer podcast.
I think people are going to get tired of seeing me. I got to like pick and choose when I'm turnip talking.
Bring your fertilizer here. Any other questions from the folks?
So the herring pond is, you've already decided that needs attention.
That needs attention.
The other ones are, you're working on it. Is it going to be the alum treatment again?
For Herring Pond, yes.
Just very similar to what they did the last time? Well, do you know how long that lasted?
10 to 15 years. The interesting thing that I learned that I didn't know because I wasn't here was that there was a weather pattern that came in and cut them off early from putting in as much as they planned to do.
I think they only did 45%.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting, but it did last as long as it was intended for plus some. So it has a limited life.
Which means that, since it's limited, Peter. 193,000 this year.
Right?
15 years later, we could put it in the
What-
capital.
yeah. We won't be able to swim there. We'll have to.
I'm hoping
we'll
something-
dredge it.
I'm hoping something else comes along in the meantime, but
Yeah,
that's the
hopefully,
tool in
yeah.
the toolbox right now.
Hopefully another process, yeah.
Apparently, the wastewater treatment plant does take out a substantial amount of phosphorus. So, but, only from those properties that are on the sewer. But it'll help.
It'll help, every little bit.
Any other questions from Zoom or here? Yep.
Oh, what? I had a question on page 159, just the totals, the communication line says 750. See, are you with me?
Yes.
Shouldn't that be 1,750?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right, that should be. I believe that the way this works so is that grand total is probably correct.
That's what I was wondering if it.
So the
affected
subtotal,
total or-
the subtotal's just off, that subtotal didn't range down to pick up that new
Okay, so
$1,000.
the totaling doesn't take it from the subtotals, it takes it from all the items.
Yes,
Good.
good pick.
So what you're saying, the subtotals are what's in the final?
Yeah.
The final
So this
total,
number is
not
correct.
the 750
750 is
for
off
for
by
that,
1,000.
for that article, or item, I should say. Yeah. I think my only concern is that I'm looking at page 160, where you've got the actual for fiscal year '25 is not quite 50,000, and now we're up to double that.
Yeah, the big reason for that, Mary, is
It's not just the two, but
it's the monitoring, that we've had savings in prior year on the monitoring
Yeah, yeah,
contracts, which
yeah.
we know are not gonna be there this year or next.
yeah. Okay. I think we don't have any.
I have a question on page 155.
What page, Roy?
155.
150.
Personal services.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The increase in salaries from FY '26 projected for FY '27 is only about $8,000.
456,
accurate?
464, right.
Right, and Roy, that's because, again, we didn't have settled contracts, so when we put this
Yeah.
information together, it's based on the existing 26 rates. So in a couple weeks, I should have information to you as to the results of collective bargaining, which would give us updated amounts at that time.
So it will likely be higher.
It will be, yes.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, they're gonna want more money.
We're working really hard, though.
Okay, anything else from folks? I think we're okay, and I want to thank you
Okay.
very much for
Thank
all
you.
your work. And the workshop, you said, is the last Thursday in
Yeah,
in-
please
in,
come. We'd love to
February,
have people.
And it's going to be at...
I think we're going to start it at 2:00. The Board of Health usually starts at 3. We started it at 2:00 last time. And I think this time we're going to cover drinking water, we're going to cover tobacco, a couple changes to transfer station requirements for hauling, a little bit about rental certificate programs.
And that's located where?
Right here.
At the town hall?
Yeah,
Okay,
the more the merrier.
yep. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming.
Of course.
Oops. Okay. Let me see, I'm looking at the agenda. The next item is going to be the town clerk, and I see Linda on the Zoom here.
And I didn't expect you to show up, Linda, so thank you very much. And
Yeah,
I'll just-
I'm calling. I'm calling you from Devon's, Mass. I'm at a clerk convention, so I just heard a speech from Secretary Galvin's assistant, who informed us that there will likely be up to 12 questions, ballot questions, on the ballot for November.
12?
So that means, with all the state offices, that we're likely to have a two-page ballot.
We need ballots.
Yeah.
So-
So that brings
wait.
me to say that we bought new election equipment, not from the town's money, but for money that we got from the auditors. And we hope that that's going to speed up the process of putting all those ballots through.
And Linda, if you just would go through your budget a little bit, but I'll just preface it by saying Linda in the clerk's office has, really you'll see changes in two areas that Linda and I have talked about. Electric and equipment and a new model for how we pay for it. And also in the training, what we're really trying to do is make sure we have a qualified and trained assistant for some succession planning. And so I'll turn it over to Linda to discuss it. Oh, one other thing is Linda has been asking to make her administrative assistant full-time. So this is another area where at this point we haven't included that in the budget. So another area where we theoretically could be increasing, but we're trying to keep things as level funded and level service as we can. So we didn't include a part-time position to a full-time position. That's something that we'd like to do, but is not included in this budget. And I'll turn it over to you, Linda.
Okay, great. My budget's pretty straightforward. I mean, the biggest increases is on the election coding. So because we bought the two areas, because we bought a new tabulators, new election equipment, they also cost more to, keep up to date. So every time we have an election, we have to have it coded, and that costs more money. And then also the poll pads that we use to check in voters when they come in to vote, they changed the way that we pay for that. So it used to be a flat fee. It was about $1,200 a year. Now it's $300 per machine per election. So that adds up. so it's not just, the state elections, but it's also the local elections. And last year, we added an extra election, if y'all recall,
Right.
in June. That was not in my budget, but we managed to get that one in. And yeah, so it all adds up. So it's not just that's just the first part. So that's the professional and technical part.
Let me just say one thing, Linda. So it's
Yeah.
not dissimilar for the Finance Committee to what we've seen in the IT world over the last several years, where you're no longer buying something and then owning it for however long you own it. You're buying it, and then there's annual maintenance fees and there's subscription fees. It's the subscription model that almost every business in the world is moving into to generate recurring revenues. And so that's what you see with the election equipment annual fees as a new item this year. That's the Linda's election equipment now. Now we have to pay an annual maintenance fee just to have it, in addition to the coding that happens with every election. So just the way the world is now. So
Yes, yes. Thank you, Rich. That's exactly right. Communication is the same. That's our legal ads. The operational programs cost, the supplies, I kept level budgeted for supplies. We bought a lot of election supplies in 2024, and we will reuse those from voting stickers to trolley cars to pull our voting machines, all of that. The census printing went up because our normal vendor, who we used to use for years and years, decided to drop us because we were too small. Yeah, so we had to pay more. That's kind of the rule of thumb is if you do less, you pay more for it.
Win.
So like if we were to do, 10 annual reports, we would pay pretty much as if we were due 200. Yeah. So, so that's the office supply part. The traveling conference, we did increase, and that was mostly due to the fact that both Kendra and I are working towards our certifications. So this conference is part of it. By attending this conference and going through, listening to speakers and working with trainers with the Attorney General's office, with the Campaign Finance Division, with Vital Records, and all of that, this whole conference gives us like 5 points. You have to have 120 points to be certified as a municipal clerk. I was certified back in 2022, and Kendra will likely be certified this year. So that means a lot because you want to have people who know what they're doing. I'm working towards my master municipal clerk designation, which means it's just like getting a master's degree in being a clerk. So it costs money to take classes, and that's what I'm doing. So does anyone have any?
just want to say, so again, not too dissimilar to other departments. As a small town, it's not uncommon to have a lot of one-person departments or offices. And we're lucky that in most of our circumstances, we don't. And those areas those offices that do have assistants, we want the assistants to want to be in the top role, or at least have the ability to fill in that top role for a period of time until we can get a replacement if somebody moves on or retires, et cetera. So
I have a question, Linda. I know there's been a lot of talk about voting by mail. And what is the status of that? And is that something that the select board will decide at some point whether we will allow it or not? And that, obviously, if we do or we don't, that changes the costs of proceeding one way or the other.
Voting by mail is the law in Massachusetts. We have to do it.
Even though there's some, aren't there, absentee ballots and then stuff like that, but.
Absentee ballots is also law.
Right. So we cannot change, we cannot say we're not going to have voting by mail. for everybody.
The only way you could opt out in a local election. But what we found, Mary, last year is when we opted out of an election in 2025, I personally got a lot of grief from people who said, "Why didn't you send me a ballot? I always get a ballot in the mail." So that wasn't just for the annual election, it was for the special election too. So, yeah, it was, people understand that they have to come to town meeting to vote in person, but are, people who don't get out of the house all the time expect to get a ballot in the mail. You still have to apply for it. But this year, what we did to save some money is we put a ballot request form on the bottom of the census. So you could apply for a ballot when you
saw that.
sent in your census.
Did you get much response from that?
Oh, we've gotten about 750 so far.
Oh, yeah, so far.
It's only February.
Yeah, right, yeah, no, I'm thinking that people would do it when they receive the ballot, when they receive the information to fill out, rather than waiting down the road sometime. I don't know. Do you get many public records requests?
Yes. Last year I got 126.
Oh, my God.
And some of them take a great amount of time.
Yes.
I would say that, we have incidences where people are seeking records from the last 5 years, the last 10 years, the last 20 years, and it's very cumbersome, very kind of tedious, but it's the law and you have to do it.
No matter how far back they're requesting?
Well, you can request more time from the person, and you can also request, you can do a fee request. So let's take, for example, that somebody is requesting the fire department records for the last 20 years on a property. That's an actual request. All public requests are also public information. So that would have taken about, according to Lisa, it would have taken about 8 hours time. And the most we can charge is $25 an hour. So that they would have to send me a check for $200 made out to the town of Eastham. And then we would start working on the request. So after I sent that information to the individual, that person withdrew the request.
How is the $25 per hour determined? And is that?
That's done by the state.
Oh, the state not requires, but states it, yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Has that changed recently, or has that been that way for a long time?
It's been that way for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, okay. Are there any other questions from folks on the town clerk?
I have a question on page 25.
Roy?
Excuse me, on page 83.
Okay.
Okay, in fiscal year 25, actual salaries was 133,000. The budget was 177,000. What happened there?
I believe, so that was which year?
No, it's not quite
It was
right. The
146.
actual was 133 and 825. The budget for 25 was 146. And the difference there, I suspect, Linda, is probably we have to budget amounts for election workers. And so it's
Right.
might not have had as many elections, so we probably had savings on election workers. That's non-permanent staff. They're just not volunteers, but periodic temporary employees.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
How much do you pay the election workers?
$15 an hour.
Okay.
And our registrars who do some other functions for us, they make $16 an hour. And yet, and we do have some volunteers. We have election workers who volunteer, so they don't get paid.
Yeah, yeah.
And we appreciate them very much.
So does everybody in town. So I guess I have another question. When you have the elections, and we had a special election last year because of the override for the wastewater, and you're now saying that you would like to have one of your employees become full-time, but right now that person is part-time. What are the ramifications of not having a full-time person?
The ramifications would be that that person would likely leave because she's working 2 part-time jobs, and each town is paying her for 19 hours a week and no benefits.
No benefits, no.
Right.
And that's been your experience, Linda, right?
Yes.
We've had 3 part-time people that eventually move on.
Yep.
So then you have to go through training and hiring, training, and the whole 9 yards,
Exactly.
which is not,
And not to speak for Linda, but I'm sure I'm on the same page with you, Linda.
yeah.
One of the things that person could do is assist with the records management. So you just asked a question about public records requests. If we have the record, we're required to provide it. But the opposite of that, if we don't have the record, we're not required to provide it. So it's really important that we go through a records management process to get rid of records that we no longer need. And that requires you to go through the Secretary of State, get permission to get rid of things and things like that. But that's an example of what that person could help out with.
what are the guidelines for keeping records? What time guidelines?
It's different for a bunch of things, but there's a whole record retention schedule that's put out by the state, and following that and making sure that it's a space issue too. Linda's got a lot of issues with storage space and secure storage space and historical records and things like that. So
Yes. I mean, there's certain things like vital records, birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates. Those we have to keep for a lifetime. We have to keep those forever, I mean, literally. But things like, let's see, like nomination papers that if someone's elected and they serve their term, after that, you can get rid of them.
Get rid of them.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the folks here at the table or on Zoom? No, okay. Well, thank you very much, Linda, and are they serving you dinner?
No, we're on our own.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay. So I'm looking at the agenda, and we are down to 4C, the fire department, and I know we have some folks here.
now I'll introduce our chief, Lisa Albino, and our deputy, Eric Littman. And I guess just to kick it off before we turn over, to Roy's question that he has on salaries, yes, these are on the FY26 rates. So when we finish collective bargaining, we'll have updated amounts. And continuing the theme of, you don't see a lot of reductions or cuts, but there are some significant items that we did not increase, and I'll let Lisa talk about them, but I'll just briefly mention, for example, vehicle repairs probably ought to be receiving quite a bit of an increase, and we didn't. Communications, again, Lisa can get into the details as to how they use their tablets within the ambulances and in their vehicles. and those have a cost to them. Supplies for medical supplies and fire suppression equipment probably could use an increase, and we didn't. And we maintained the training budget at the same level. I believe it's the same level as prior year. And we have a lot of new members that need training. And for example, we figured a different way to pay for this. But I don't want to steal your thunder, but we're really proud that we've got 4 EMTs going to paramedic school. And that will have an impact to us in a future year because now we got to pay them as medics and we'll have certification costs and things like that. But we need medics. And don't ask me any questions. I'll save that for Lisa. And then finally, under uniforms, you'll see that that didn't go up. That will be something that needs to go up, but that will be part of what I figure in as part of the increase needed related to collective bargaining because that's a collectively bargained item. And then finally, there's no staffing changes. But there has been a request for a fire inspector, which at this point is not included in this budget. So not a lot of reductions, but some significant increases that we've kind of held at bay. And with that, I'll turn it over to the chief and the deputy.
Thank you, everyone. It's good to be here. It's hard to believe it's been a year since last time we were here. I do want to thank you all for your support last year with the budget. That was my first budget to go through. Wasn't sure where I was going, but how it was all going to work out. But it worked out. As you know, we're an emergency service, so we can't predict all the calls that we go on, what time of day they come in, whether they're back-to-back calls, 3 calls at a time. Just the other day, we had 4 EMS calls going on at the same time. Which is hard to manage, not hard to manage, but it is challenging to manage with the staffing level that we have. So we had, we had 4 firefighter EMTs. We had 2 paramedics on, 2 paramedics on that day. So we had a total of 4 people to manage 4 calls. Most EMS calls take anywhere from 2 to 3 people. A lot of times it's 3 people because of what we can do in the back of the ambulance. And our state protocols mandate when we have 2 paramedics in the back of the ambulance, when we have only 1. So, however, that's challenging. We do have a callback system for people to come back, man the 2nd ambulance, the 3rd ambulance. We had an ambulance go down
How does
in the
that
middle
work
of
when
it.
you're having a recall when they're not here? And
So-
you've got need of an ambulance.
So we hope that the people that are able to come back will come back. And dispatch is given a certain amount of time. If they don't receive a call that someone's coming in, then we go mutual aid. So we will go to Wellfleet, depending on where the call is, or we'll go to Orleans and they'll take care of the call for us. And then either myself or the deputy will try and go to that call also. So we get split up and we go and do what needs to
Because
be
we
done.
both have maintained our paramedic.
Your paramedic licenses?
Yep.
You know,
It's,
for that exact reason.
and it's not unheard of for myself or the deputy to come back in the middle of the night for a call, to make sure that they're staffed properly if they need a second paramedic and they're not getting anybody. If there is a mutual aid ambulance coming in, one of us will try and meet that ambulance if we need to.
And the chief and I have maintained an on-call status where, we're blessed enough that we both live in the town. And so we make sure
Close
that
enough,
one of us
yeah.
is available, because it's not just the medical calls, it's any high acuity call that would trigger us to set up the command system, multiple patients, fire scenario, could be any type of emergency where we would have to set up the command system. That is most often required by a chief officer to be able to mitigate that call in the command position. So we've been able to maintain that between the chief and I.
Do you tend to be busier in the summer?
No,
I mean, you know.
we had 4 calls going on, and it was the 2nd of February.
This is, yeah, yeah.
There's no
Mary?
rhyme or reason.
What?
Mary, I just, if both the chief and the deputy could each have a microphone.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep,
we
We're having a little trouble hearing
Yeah.
you guys. Thank you, because what
All
you're
right.
saying is
Yep.
I'm
really
surprised with my loud
important.
voice.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to be loud.
Yeah, yeah, it's been set up, thanks, Kate.
Yep.
So in February 2nd, we had 4 EMS calls going on at the same time.
It's very difficult to really predict, or there's too many variables, and it's I guess you could say it's always been historically that, we could go an hour or 2 or 3 without a call, and then it comes in threes. That's what, to be honest with you, is what, like in the fire service, we're accustomed to, everything comes in threes. So, and that's even including calls, so we'll just go one right after the other after the other.
But with that, I ran some numbers. Our calendar year numbers for 25, we did 2,200 calls, and that is calls for service, whether that be EMS, fire calls, alarms, anything that we got called out for service. So that was 2,200 calls. It was about 100 less than the prior year, but we're not sure that we're picking up the right numbers. We had a change in dispatching, which also changed our RMS system, which is our reporting system. So I'm not quite sure there aren't a couple other calls floating out there that
Should have been
weren't
added.
captured. That was one of the big changes from last year, that we moved our dispatch services over to the county,
Oh, yes.
and that has worked out very well. We have not received a bill from them. We will not be receiving a bill from them for dispatch services for this year coming up, because it's paid through for a grant through the state 911. I believe we have 2 more years left on that, and then the following year, so that would be 28.
28?
FY '29, there'll be a bill, and I believe it's only 50%.
50% bill, yeah,
And then a 25% bill,
right.
I believe,
Well, 75%.
75%.
Right. So, to that point, and that's another thing that's not in the budget, because we don't need it in the budget yet.
Right,
But
but
that
we
will
will.
be a good sized bill, somewhere between order of magnitude. By the time we have to do it, probably upwards of $100,000 that we're gonna have to figure out a way to provide for, so.
Did you say a 100 or
Yeah,
Yep.
100.
100 grand?
Just my guess, but,
Yeah.
And that's based on our run volume and our population.
We are hoping that by the time this comes around, that the sheriff's office will have maybe expanded their services and looked at a new regional facility, which might gain more participation throughout the Cape and lower the costs, operating costs. But then, a new facility also has higher construction costs. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. But that's one of our challenges in the next coming years, is how are we going to fund dispatch, and what are we going to do on the police side of dispatch, which is still in-house.
Right. So, but as far as the fire department goes, that's been very good. That process went very well for us. There were not many glitches at all, which we were concerned about. But when they threw the switch and we went up to them for dispatching and 911 call taking, it's gone very well for us.
That's good.
Rich had mentioned about the paramedics. We are in need of paramedics. We keep losing. We have lost some paramedics, and we weren't able to replace them with paramedics. We put it out to the staff, and we were trying to get what we would consider homegrown paramedics. So the last 3 firefighters that we hired, it was a little over a year and a half ago, they were EMTs. They went to paramedic school. We really worked really hard on recruiting these firefighters to make sure that they were a great fit with the personnel over in the department, because I think that if we have a great recruitment tool, we're able to hold on to our employees and retain them. We invested a lot of time, and we sent 3 of them off to firefighter recruit school in Bridgewater. We sent 3 at the same time. That was a big chunk of the budget, because every time you bring a new employee on with uniforms and training, it's a lot of money.
Expensive.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that when we recruited these 3 young gentlemen, that they were going to stay with us. And we invested a lot of time and a lot of the budget with them. They graduated in May from recruit school, and they came right back to us, and they have fit in very well. Fast forward to some grant money that was available throughout. It's the firefighter safety, not the safety grant, it's the AFG, Assistance for Firefighter Grant,
Yep.
that the federal government has, that we were waiting a long time to hear whether we, when I put the grant in for, we put it in for monies to help send firefighters to paramedic school, and also for some new cardiac monitors. Our monitors were 12 years old. Actually, they were older than that, but they were at end of life. We had one of our cardiac monitors, and it does a whole array of things. It stopped working. So when that stopped working, I have to take an ambulance out of service, because that is a required piece of equipment. I begged, borrowed, and stole from basically another town to get a monitor so I could put it into service. Now, to purchase one monitor, it was $62,000. So I put that in the grant. Unfortunately, I didn't get money for the grant for the equipment, but I got money to send 2 paramedics, 2 firefighters to paramedic school, which would help defray some of the costs of the school and overtime to backfill their shifts, because I have to man the station with a certain number of staff per shift. With that, now in the state of Massachusetts, anybody going to the community college for an EMT certification or a paramedic certification is free. That just happened. So it's not, right now, there's those programs that pay for your higher education, provided you don't have a degree. But with this EMT and paramedic program now, it doesn't matter if you have a degree. They will pay, the state will pay for that. So that's about $18,000 for just the college class. So that's taken care of. I was able to receive a $67,000 grant from the federal government to help defray some of the salaries. So I put it out to my staff that, we have this money. Is there anybody interested? I had 4 of my young firefighters, the 4 newest hires, say that they wanted to go. So we're working through the admissions and the prerequisites that they need to do. And September, we'll have 4 of our staff in paramedic school at the college, and these are homegrown. These are firefighters that live either in Eastham or Orleans, so they will be available for callback. They meet that mileage range, which is a huge deal for us.
Yeah, the impact of this can't be, in my opinion, underestimated, because as we were here last year and we talked about the number one challenge that's facing all fire departments across Cape Cod and nationwide is the retention, not only the recruitment, but the retention of paramedics. And for the chief and her leadership in providing the culture that we have at the department is exampled with those 4 firefighters wanting to go to paramedic school. It's really it's the exception and not the rule that any department would have that many for a department of our size to want to go to paramedic school all at once. So I think it's a testament to the department, where the department's at with its culture and where the morale is right now. So we're extremely excited that we were able to accomplish that, and we'll have 4 more paramedics that are critical right now, critical for all departments, but we were able to do it organically, which is great.
Yeah, because last year, I think when you were here, you said they kind of said, we're not ready yet, we're not ready to do it. So you did something right to prepare them to be ready.
Yeah, because a lot of that was the chief and I, as a team, we discussed, like, that's what we wanted for the assistance to firefighter grants. That was the priority, to try to get some funding, and along with the ability that the state gave for firefighters now to be able to go to EMT and especially paramedic school, whether you have your degree or not, all of those things came together to where they were able to it was much more appealing. And
They didn't have to pay for school themselves.
and we, with the funding that the chief, that some of the costs that she's deferring to, that she's speaking of as far as deferring, is, to cover them while they're going to, because that still opens up a vacancy on shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the impact of those funds that she was able to successfully apply for, is going to be used towards. So all of that is just, I'm excited, that we have, a quarter of our department, almost a quarter of our department going to paramedic school.
So one of the things I always think about, it's just, and we've talked, Mary, over time, it's interesting how all the bits and pieces of information we talk about at the Finance Committee kind of come full circle and fit together. So all that being said, it's only great if we can retain them.
That's my
so,
next question.
Not to get ahead of ourselves or, talk about, private negotiations in public, but we're pretty much close on this. And what you'll see when we get a chance to talk about it is, why do things cost what they cost? Because this contract will incentivize our paramedics to stay in town.
Because we like Rich speaks of, and I'm going to interrupt you, Rich, we have to stay competitive with the other departments, and in fact, I believe that, in not speaking out of turn, if and when everything gets settled, not only do I think we are going to be competitive, I think we might even appeal to other departments that they may want to consider, if there's an opening as a paramedic, to come here, right? And I think that's been accomplished.
And I think we have a great culture within the department now, that people want to, we have a great department. The fire department, the personnel that are over there are top notch. And we've done, both the deputy and I have done we want to make sure that we get the right fit for people. We want to get the people that want to stay and work for the town of Eastham and work for the department. And it takes a lot of work. And, Linda, I heard Linda talking about it, when you can't retain your employees and you have to send them
Very
out.
expensive.
Very.
For the fire service, it is extremely it's extremely expensive, because it's not only their training, it's their uniforms, it's their turnout gear. The turnout gear it's astronomically, the prices have increased so much, and that a lot of it has to do with the PFAS and the laws that we have to follow with PFAS-free gear, and it's the equipment costs. It's just an absolute amazing cost, and if we have to send them to recruit school, that's another. We have to pay for their they're getting a salary. We have to pay for their shifts to backfill. We have to pay
The
off
tuition.
tape, the tuition, the housing. There's a stipend that they get for meals. It's expensive.
How many, and that's one of my concerns, not just exactly what you've been describing, but what you don't want to have is to spend the money that you've just described for the equipment, for the training, everything that you need to make them worthwhile in your department, and then find that some other town has better salary, and you lose after all of that money being spent, and now they're worth something a lot more than they were before they got the
100%.
the training, and
That's why
and go to another town.
That's why this gentleman right here has been very helpful with the competitiveness of Eastham as opposed to other towns. And I think, I don't want to get into that, but we all discuss this and we need to be competitive with other towns. And I think
And I just say, our approach on town admin side and with all of our unions, I think, we're all appreciative. They're appreciative. We're appreciative. It's not a butting of heads. It's not, lowballing and them coming in high. It's all right, where do we need to be? What do you folks want for your employees? How do you want things to be structured? And we work with them to get to an agreement that's going to be good for everybody. So anyway, we'll talk about that more when we've got that all wrapped up. But
one thing that you did see was an increase in the maintenance budget. Our fleet is getting older, particularly the engines. But when you have the ambulances on the road as much as we do, they do have to go for services, oil changes and things like that. And it costs, for each ambulance, it's about $800 per service. And that's an oil change, filter changes, fuel filters.
Do you have trouble finding somebody to do the work for you?
We do not. We do not. We did, but we do have a gentleman that is certified with all of the fire apparatus also, and he does do our services for that. But we do regular routine maintenance oil changes on each of the ambulances, anywhere between 5 and 7,500 thousand miles. So we found that if you push it out any farther than 7,500, then we have other mechanical problems.
part of the goal of that is, preserving the life. We have a ambulance rotation schedule as part of the capital plan. And so, Lisa, I'm just going to ask you to speak a little bit. I think this is our third, maybe fourth year where we have 3 ambulances. So if you could speak to how that's preserving the life and getting us extra, because an ambulance, probably next time you do an ambulance, it's probably going to be $750,000 by the time we get there.
So the ambulance costs are, we just took delivery of a new ambulance this week. It came in. We're in the middle of trying to get it into service with all of the radios and all of the equipment. And this was an ambulance that was bought by my predecessor. He spec'd this ambulance out. This is a newer ambulance company for us that we've never dealt with before. They were able to get us this ambulance about $150,000 cheaper than what we're used to.
Why do you think that is?
It's not as well made. There are definitely differences from what we have, but the ambulance costs to build these prices have gone up astronomically. So for one ambulance, we're running about $500,000 to $550,000 for just the ambulance, not the equipment.
A patient or the layperson wouldn't see any difference necessarily between this ambulance and the other 2 that we have. It's more designed in a more basic fashion. It doesn't, for lack of a better term, have as many bells and whistles as the other 2 do. But as far as patient care or how it operates.
There's no
the
difference.
late.
There's no difference.
Not necessarily, no.
So what we'll do is we'll put this ambulance into the rotation, and then each month, there's an ambulance that will be what we would consider front line, second line, and then third, and they rotate through. I couldn't do that with our third ambulance because mechanically, I was afraid it was gonna break down.
Due to its age.
Due to it, and it had 170,000 miles when it went out the door the other day, and
that's the
just
point.
needed it to get over the threshold.
That's the point I kind of wanted you to make. So we've had 3 ambulances for at least a couple of years now, but the third ambulance was the old ambulance that we didn't turn in and we've kept. And now we've finally got
A new
3 in the first cycle of the first
Right,
3.
So the 2 that are over there that are the oldest are 2022s. So I'm hoping to slow the mileage down a little bit on those with
the
with the
rotation.
rotation of putting this other ambulance in.
And then I think it's 2 years from now, we got one coming up to get rid of one of the 2, whatever the worst of the 2022s is.
Right.
And then we'll have relatively new ambulance every other year or every third year or something like that.
The problem is that it takes anywhere from a year and a half, 2, and sometimes 3 years to get these ambulances once they're ordered. So it's really a fine balance as to when we order them, as to when we get them.
Well, you've got to figure out what your need is going to be within 2 to 3 years and order them in advance.
And that's part of the capital plan, right? That,
Yeah,
that we sit
Right.
down with Rich and we figure out
Figure
what
out
that
what the
plan
timing is, yeah.
100%.
And
So the equipment that's in it, you've got a lot of high-tech equipment in those ambulances. Do they come with that, or do you have to add on?
we
your
we
own?
take, so when this last ambulance left, we take all of our equipment, all of our soft goods out, and it goes into the new ambulance.
And back to the maintenance, you have people that maintain the vehicle itself, but who maintains that technology? Because it must be pretty complex.
The technology itself doesn't necessarily change that much. So when we say the soft goods, we're talking about our radios, and then all of the equipment, the oxygen bottles, none of that changes that much. It's when that ambulance comes in, what may have changed a little bit is like the lighting, maybe an updated lighting package that comes with it. So, how it's lit up on a scene to the operation of it, I would say the motor and transmission, that stuff is upgraded. But, the soft goods, the radios, stuff like that, it doesn't change that much from year to year.
It doesn't change, but we have to have maintenance agreements for
Correct.
the stretcher, for the monitors, for the power load system. So those are required, those are state requirements for the ambulance service that we have to maintain a service agreement and preventative maintenance on those. And if a stretcher goes down and we have a problem with it, I need to have a company that comes in to take care of those issues. Those maintenance agreements every year go up in costs.
But
We use Stryker for a lot of our equipment. They are our EMS stretchers, power load systems, our monitors. Those, I could tell you, I can count on an increase twice a year in all those agreements. They do it in October and they do it in April, and they tell you everything goes up 6% in October and in April. The problem is they are the only game in town because they are proprietary to some equipment. Some of the other equipment I'm able to go to other places to get those preventative maintenance, but with certain equipment, I have to use them. And
That doesn't seem fair.
it doesn't seem fair, but I have to tell you, I have to have those because without those preventative maintenance agreements and those stickers that say that they've had the preventative maintenance means I don't get my ambulance license, which means I can't put the ambulance on the road.
And I want to, because people have the question between what's needed and what's discretionary, right? So is there anybody on the Cape that doesn't have the power load stretchers now?
I don't believe so.
And that's not a requirement, but everybody has them now. So this is an example, this may be an extreme example, but people ask, well, can you cut the budget? You don't need all these things that you have. And the power load stretcher is a great example because I brought it into the town of Yarmouth 8 years ago. We had the old manual stretchers, and we had an enormous amount of injured on duty claims. The number one,
With the backs.
the number one injury,
correct.
putting somebody out an IOD in the fire department world, is back injuries from lifting. So, is a power load stretcher system discretionary? I guess in that sense it is, because you don't, nothing says you have to have them, but it's not in the sense of how you actually doing the job. So
Of operating your
And so-
department, you need them.
we're going to save injuries, save overtime, save injured
Yes.
on duty claims. It's a cost savings, even though the operating budget is going up at 6% plus on these agreements. But I can't imagine, I'm sure you guys can't imagine, a world where you don't have them.
No, because we remember a world when we didn't have
When we
them.
didn't have them, then
These guys have been around a while.
No, we go far enough back where it was a two-person carry. You had to pick it up from the ground,
And
you
then you
know?
have injured on duty.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
absolutely.
They're back savers, which in turn, obviously, with the claims, I mean, regardless of what that increase is, I could argue that the money saved from injury is exponentially, More.
Hard to measure.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess the only other thing that I do want to mention is we did put an engine replacement in the capital. That did go back in. We have our fire engine that needs to be replaced is over 20 years old. We are looking at avenues also like the grants through the federal government for vehicle replacement. But that is aging, and as these vehicles get up there in age, they require more mechanical work, shall we say.
And we got that 2 years out from now, so 29, I
Right.
think. So just a
Capital budget?
yeah, so just a refresher, the previous chief took out the third engine. And, after, now that Lisa's on board, we kind of had that conversation again. It's hard to have just two engines because inevitably one's out of service for maintenance or whatever issue. And now you got one, you can't do business when you got, especially in a hydrant in town where you need two engines, so.
Right. And we have the two engines, if one does go down and we have the ladder truck, if we only have one engine and the ladder truck, there are some roads that ladder truck cannot get down. And that's a whole nother topic for another day, and we're trying to get into, making sure that the roads are properly maintained, but there are some spots that I can't get that ladder truck. So if I've got an engine out of service and I can't get the ladder truck down the road, what do? And there's a fire call down there. I need to be.
Do you call another town?
We do, absolutely, but there's a delayed response. Is Orleans staffed? Is Wellfleet staffed? Are they staffed properly? Because they're just as busy as we are. So where's my next engine coming in from? And that's why I really think that it is crucial that we put the engine back on the capital. So that if something does go down for maintenance or does break down, we have a backup. I think not having that second engine with the ladder truck, I don't want to have our ISO rating go backwards. I want it to go forwards. I want to keep it where it's at.
And that's another good point. We used to be, a 9?
9.
And now we are a 3?
4.
A 4. So ISO ratings, insurance rating that gets associated with a town and potentially neighborhoods within towns, depending on where they are, the location, so water source and the station and response and all that. But going from a 9 to a 3, and I forget the numbers, but it was substantial savings, and that is largely responsible for how they operate the department, but also because of the water system. So, the water system had a cost, but it also had a savings that taxpayers aren't seeing in their tax bill, but they're seeing in their insurance bill.
Convinced them of that.
And one other thing I just wanted you to touch on, Lisa, because I see your stats over here, is just the EMS stats alone. She can talk about the details, but I can tell you, one of the things I try to keep track of is on the 1,500 calls that they have for EMS, just EMS, not the fire calls. That's a year. That's about 4 calls per day. And of what's transported, it's a little bit over 2 calls a day on average over the course of a whole year that's transported to the hospital. So
Right, so,
it's a busy department, and it's used every day, day in and out by all of our residents. So
And like Rich spoke of earlier, this year, the decision collectively with the chief, myself, and the administration was, that we'd like to see a fire prevention officer, because that's one of my 3 tasks as the deputy fire chief, which the chief had also had to assume those responsibilities. So it's not only am I tasked with operations with the chief, training, I also have fire prevention, which is taking up more and more time between annual inspections that we have to do of all the businesses, all of the seasonal inspections, and then all of the resales, transfers, new construction, and additions. Those all fall under fire prevention. And so with that being said, it obviously is taking up a tremendous amount of time to accomplish all of those tasks along with operations and with training as well. But with the constraints and through the discussions, we didn't feel that it was fiscally responsible enough for this year. But I think in the future, it's something that we would like to see as far as an increase in staffing, so that we can address that full-time.
And I think our approach would be, we're always trying to get the maximum value out of everything we do. So not only would it alleviate the deputy from some daily tasks, then he can focus on his primary job, but also it would be an operational person. It would count toward what we call the floor strength. So this person would be hopefully a paramedic and could respond and support the on-duty shift strength.
Be able to work shift work, recall,
Right.
all of those things to help support on the operations side of it.
similar to Orleans has a full-time fire inspector who is a paramedic, who does, will do shift work on the weekends, at night, if he can, and fill in. It's, every time, I know when I was in the position, every time I felt like I was gaining traction with a project, I had to go out for an inspection. And it
something
wasn't
else.
just a single inspection, it was multiple inspections, and then I get back and, all the paperwork that goes along with it, and then I'm like,
And then all the
where
readings.
was I in this other project? And
Right.
I just never seemed to be able to finish what I needed to. We're very busy. And then there's also some of the legislation that's out there, pending legislation with short-term rentals and smoke and carbon monoxide inspections. So there's a lot of those too. So for one person with many other duties, that's going to be very difficult.
You do that for all short-term rentals?
No,
We
so
do not
we-
right now,
No,
but there is
is-
pending legislation for
That
that.
it may be,
Because of what happened.
Yes.
it may be, yes, it may be it's the Hubbard bill. That may be, I believe, the last I checked, it was still in committee. And it hadn't come out of committee just yet. But I know there's a strong push from the legislative contingency on Cape Cod to pass that. Whether that happens or not is yet to be seen.
It's gone to the legislature?
I think it's in committee right now at the legislature. So, and if as written, if that bill does pass, you're talking about 800 more annual inspections
Inspections.
a year. So,
What are some of the top causes for fires out here? I feel like there's been a lot of fires the past few years.
Careless disposal.
yeah,
Careless
it's always
disposal of ashes from your fireplace, oily rags that someone's maybe doing renovations,
Construction, yeah.
oily rags,
electrical.
electrical issues, and
A lot of, and a good amount of it is electrical. We're seeing a lot more lithium-ion batteries have become,
The e-bike down in Orleans,
we can go on and on. We've even attributed some recent fires here in Eastham that there's a possibility, we couldn't confirm it, but there was a possibility that lithium ions played a piece because the problem with lithium-ion batteries is a lot of people are buying these aftermarket. Like if their battery finally doesn't work anymore and they're going on some sites, I don't want to mention, that they're just getting batteries that say it's compatible with. Those are not being tested by Underwriters Laboratory. Those are coming from another country that's building them, not necessarily to the standard that you would get at a Home Depot when you bought that piece of equipment. That includes e-bikes, e-scooters. You can get all of those on online sites now from other countries.
Drills and stuff.
The drills, all of that, all the distance.
Everything we have is battery charged.
Correct. And so that's becoming more and more of an issue the more and more that people are buying these. Along with a lot of times, as homes are aging within the town of Eastham, the insulation begins to break down. It begins to dry and break down. When that happens, that insulation is responsible to keep the heat and resistance within that wire. If that's near a piece of wood, that heat begins to break down that wood. And then, so when you hear it's just electrical in nature, that's most commonly the reason why, is because that wiring is broken down. That heat is now being transferred to a piece of wood that's beginning to break down, which is called pyrolysis. And then eventually it starts to smolder, and then before you know it.
So make sure you have smoke alarms and all that.
Right, and that's, I am a proponent, and the deputy will tell you, smoke detectors and CO detectors, when we go out to do an inspection for a resale, it's the only time we can make sure that a house is safe for the next people coming in. And I've had some very upset people. Well, what do you mean I can't use that one? Well,
The reason why we
the
laugh.
counterfeit.
The reason why we laugh is because I'll go in to do a resale that the chief has already done in the past, and sometimes I will hear, well, Chief Albino, she approved this, and I'm like, there is no way. I'm here to tell you right now, and I'll come back and we'll laugh about it because she's like, there's no way, I didn't allow that.
I did not allow that.
Yeah.
And that's, my biggest thing is house numbers, visible from the road,
Yep.
proper working smoke and CO detectors. That's what saves lives.
And we go the extra mile here in Eastham. I have to be honest with you. So we've even set up a system where if somebody's not sure whether they're doing a sale or transfer, they're not sure whether they have the right smoke detector, we say just call us. Make an appointment with our administrative assistant Jennifer Anthony, and she'll schedule a walkthrough. And that's part of the time that I take, which I think is really important for our residents, just to walk through it. So I'm not going to go there when it's time because they have a closing date. And then they fail. Now they got to push the closing, right? Who are they going to get mad at? They're going to get mad
at you.
right? And they've taken us up on that. With that also being said, though, there's sometimes where I think certain real estate agents take advantage of that. Instead of taking a look through it and seeing, because most of them know exactly what the expectations are. And so now the chief and I are considering bringing forth to Rich and the select board a reinspect fee. Because now I have to go back 2 and 3 times, right? That's more time that's taken up that's unnecessary. So.
Yeah. So I have a question. There's a house down the street here on Route 6 that looks to me that if I don't smoke, but if I smoked and I threw my cigarette out, that house would just go into flames. I mean, it's in terrible shape. What responsibility does a town have for housing that is in that that condition.
It's my understanding that the only one that has the authority to take corrective action
Is the old-
is the building commissioner.
Oh, the building.
The fire department does not have the authority to order a correction, condemnation of any structure within the town. That's all goes through the building commissioner. They're the ones that have the authority, I believe, through the Commonwealth to do that.
So the building commissioner in town could,
They could, there would be, it's a very long and lengthy process to do that.
Okay.
Because you have to prove certain things, like they don't have water to the establishment, that, there are certain parameters, and then it would take an administrative warrant. There's a
able to get into the
lengthy
house?
process.
Boy.
Yes.
Yeah, and
I can't even walk in, I can't, like the chief said, it's the only time that we have the right, we actually have the authority by the Commonwealth as the fire prevention officer to go into somebody's house is when there's a sale and transfer, because they can't
can make it
close
safe.
without it. But other than that, unless we have a fire and we maintain a hose line into the structure, is the only time that we have the authority to enter that structure.
interesting.
Once we pull that last hose line out of the structure,
You can't go in.
to come back in, we need a warrant.
So I'm looking at page 115, and I see that you have several vacancies listed on here for next year.
so those are the two
Day shifts.
day shift positions that we had that were open. We were able to fill one of those positions. The employee will be starting on Monday, but this gentleman is being moved right to shift because I have a vacancy on a shift. The day positions are not palatable to people. They don't want to work the 4 days. They like the 24-hour schedule. So I had talked to Rich about having those two positions filled and then looking for two other positions, new positions, to round the shifts out to 6 so that we would be able to man the apparatus when an ambulance went out the door. We would have enough people in the station so that I wouldn't have to rely on callback. But right now, we don't think that that is fiscally responsible
For this year.
Yeah,
for this year.
and I think this will be a discussion, and we'll work it out amongst the three of us. And then we'll come to the finance committee for a discussion outside of budget time, so you get to evaluate what a potential proposal might look like. And we also have to explore the firefighters grant, that perhaps we get up to 3 years of coverage. But the idea is, we've talked a lot tonight about how to properly staff an engine and an ambulance and multiple calls and the running of 3 ambulances. And luckily, so far with the 4 we just hired, they're local, so we can use them for callback. But that's a big issue with the housing costs on the Outer Cape. If we have people that live, say, in Yarmouth or Sandwich, they're not available for callback. We can't have them driving, like crazy to get down to Eastham from home because we're just calling somebody back. They can fill in shifts, but they can't do callback.
They can't do callback.
So when we have fewer people, back in the day, everybody lived in town.
Everybody lived in town.
Or near town. So you had a lot of people. Now we have fewer people living locally. And so the idea is we might need to increase the on-duty staffing. So that's a conversation for the future. And part of that would be, and we've talked about it before, but just putting you on notice again, is a call analysis, right? We've talked a lot about, we had 4 calls in one day. So when are the concurrent calls? How often does it happen? And that will support whatever we bring forward to you.
Yeah, to bring
We have
to
a
bring to you.
we have a new RMS system, so the everyone in the fire service, we had to change over to this new national reporting system, and trying to pull data out right now. I'm just trying to learn this new system to try and pull the data out that I need. It's not as easy as I said it was gonna be.
But as Rich spoke about, it's a challenge that is facing every fire department across the Cape, is they're just not getting people to come back on calls for the reasons that Rich explained, and all departments are facing that. And if you've, which I'm sure you all have kept an eye on, if you've looked at other departments, they continue to add full-time members because of that reason. We're just not getting the people back that we should be to help supplement, that second, third, fourth call.
These guys are in it much more than I am, but it's not just the housing situation. That's certainly a part of it, but it's also a generational cultural thing too.
Correct.
So, it's interesting to observe that, I guess.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. In fact, I attended a seminar, and, the chief and I, we're used to, from our generation, we work. That's all we ever knew. That's all, you worked hard and that's all you did. You took up as much overtime as was available. Today's generation in the seminar, they value time more than they value money. And that I don't have any concept of that because I just always worked. That was my culture. So there is a cultural shift there.
Go ahead, Ron, did you?
Two things. These are probably rich questions. First, on the discussion earlier, talking about the potential legislation with additional mandates on home inspections. Educate me. I thought there was a unfunded mandate prohibition in the state. What's just in general, not just the fire department?
The unbranded mandate rules are unfunded.
We get them all the time.
Yeah, I know. But it's interesting because we have similar legislation for, building officials, and now we got coming on the fire side. I'm all for the inspections and this life safety, but could we coordinate it and
Right.
do this in one way, not have to do it twice, type of thing? So, hopefully that gets worked out.
I mean, I'm dating myself. I thought that was part of Prop 2.5 original form way back.
I have to say, we get unfunded mandates from our Office of Emergency Medical Services all the time. And whether that be equipment, training, anything like that, there's a lot of unfunded mandates that come down from the state.
Well, the last time we added staffing, we thought we were going to be all set. It was a little bit before my time, but that the requirement then was you only needed 2 people to transport, 2 EMTs, didn't even need to be medics. And now the minimum's 3 for most calls, right?
If it's a high acuity call.
If it's a high acuity call, I need 2 paramedics.
So we added the extra staff thinking that, hey, we're going to be good, and that extra staff just went to manning the runs to the hospital.
Another unfunded mandate recently was Nero's Law. I don't know if you know about Nero's Law.
The dog.
Yeah, that was unfunded. Nobody was prepared for that, because then they had to bring, we had to make sure that all of the EMTs across the state had to attend that. And so the funding to make that happen, to pay in overtime because you have contractual agreements, that wasn't thought of when that bill was passed.
Along with the equipment that we have to put on the ambulance.
So I have another question. The fire training operation that used to be on the Cape that's no longer here, how has that affected your training?
We have to send, contractually right now, we have to send new firefighters to recruit school through the Mass Fire Academy. That closest academy to us is Bridgewater. And that's a 10-week program. There's 3 academies, 1 in Bridgewater, 1 in Stowe, and 1 in Springfield. So when a class opens up, we try to send our people to Bridgewater because we have to send them for the week. There are towns on the Cape that will send their firefighters to Springfield if a class opens up.
Can you talk about, the Yarmouth facility and how we can or might utilize that?
Yeah,
So you know a little bit more about the Yarmouth facility.
So there was funding for a burn building, which obviously we use for training, for operations, for the fundamentals that we work on a annual basis. That is close to completion of the structure itself. They're working with the legislative contingency on the Cape to secure the final funding to make it happen. They're almost there. I would say the last update that we got was they were about 80% there. So it looks like that it's projected that they will be able to secure the funding, and it will be done. My estimation is probably within 6 months. That's Eric talking. But with that being said, once that happens, the Barnstable County Academy, it's my understanding, along with the Yarmouth Fire Department, because it's in Yarmouth with a partnership, will be able to use that resource. Yeah, so that for instance, for like annual training that the chief and I want to provide our firefighters, we don't have to go so far.
Right.
Right, and we have a
Save
much,
some money.
because right now, like, we just did some operations training. We bring the trailer in, but it's a very, it's a relatively small trailer. It doesn't necessarily recreate or, the difficulties in be able to navigate hose through a stairwell, the things that we always need to sharpen up on.
yeah.
So that's almost.
So it's going to be a great resource, but it's a supplement
Yep.
training. It's not going to replace the.
It's not going to replace the 10-week
Not gonna
recruit
replace
class.
the Bridgewater
No,
project.
through the Mass Fire Academy.
Well, what the chief has done successfully is I guess gather the troops, the other chiefs around the departments. This year, for the first time, we were able, on the professional development side, so developing our firefighters who attended the class in like initial fire officer training to be a company officer and the first line supervisor. The chief was able to secure a class from the Mass Fire Academy where the instructors come. We were able to get the resources of the library to use it for the multimedia and deliver a Fire Officer 1 class, not only to our department, but to all the area departments in the Lower Cape. And that's never happened before. So, and we're striving to get a fire instructor class here, hopefully in the spring as well, so.
I have one other question. The PFAS issues, as far as how that affects your equipment, how that affects your employees, et cetera.
So I've gone on a big campaign and also the state has, again, put legislation out there that our structural firefighting gear has to be PFAS-free starting January of 2027.
27?
Which what that does is the manufacturers now have to come up with PFAS-free gear.
So that means you're going to have to exchange everything that you've
No,
got?
it's not, we don't have to exchange it, but if we are to buy new gear, then we're gonna have to, right? It's gonna be,
Meet the
it's gonna be a process. However, with that gear, the initial reports that we're receiving is that it doesn't last as long as, because obviously the PFAS is part of the structural integrity of the gear.
Of the equipment.
Correct. So to take that out without a adequate replacement of that sounds like the initial reports are that the gear does not last as long or hold up as well as the gear that does have PFAS. So there's a financial impact to that, right?
Sure.
Because now we have to project how, if that's the case and that's what the end result is, now we're gonna have to replace that gear
right.
at approximately $5,000 a set right now.
And that's just for the coat and the pants. That doesn't include your helmet.
A set.
A set. So that does not include your helmet, your gloves, your boots, your hood, and anything else that goes along with it.
Which the good news on that side was the chief was also able to apply for a state grant, and we were able to get them harnesses that go over their gear in case in an emergency they would have to bail out of a more than a one-story structure that they can hook and be able to hang out until somebody was able to grab them, and get brand new helmets at no cost to us through the state firefighter grant. So she was able to secure
Always looking
that.
for grants and
Yep.
always looking to try and defray some of the costs, because this gear is very expensive. We just got everybody a second set of gear, which helps with the PFAS and all of the chemicals, because they can, if they have a fire call, I have a standard within the department. When you get back from a fire call, your gear gets washed and dried. And they have a second set of gear that they can put into service, so I'm not taking someone out of service. That was a big deal for me because they needed a second set of gear.
Because the problem is, once they go into a fire, all those byproducts, all that smoke gets embedded into the gear. It has to be extracted right away.
It can't just go in a regular,
Because those are all carcinogens from the byproducts of today's combustion, what everybody has in their homes, what we're sitting on, we have everything on. It's all petroleum-based plastics now. And so all of the byproducts of that combustion process gets embedded in the gear and needs to be extracted immediately, so.
One thing after another.
with everything, if we all experience it in our private lives, everything goes up and up and up
Oh,
and up.
yes, yes, yeah.
It's the same thing for us, along with, from medical supplies to just regular office supplies for us over the department to our uniforms. The uniform costs have,
So just to bring this full circle with it, that good segue, and, unless there's any other questions, we're happy to answer, but despite all those things, again, you don't see, and Roy will have a question in a second, we don't have a lot of decreases in the budget, but the fire department budget went up less than $10,000 with all those things being said, so no decreases that we can report to you, but again, we're muting back increases that probably ought to be happening and trying to tighten this up to not overdo what we might need for an override. I guess is the long and the short of
Right.
wrapping that up. And
Yep.
Mary Rory had a question.
One number thing, Rich, but I think it's a spreadsheet error on the summary for the department, page 113. It looks like the
Yeah,
prior
salaries.
year salaries, yeah. So maybe
Already-
if you have a chance, maybe get a,
I will update. I noticed it's the same in the other one too.
Yeah.
We'll fix that. Roy, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. I'd like to go back to the discussion on EMTs and paramedics. Could you just give us some basic background on the medical difference between an EMT and a paramedic in Massachusetts?
Yep, so an EMT is basic first responder. They do the basic skills. They can administer like an EpiPen, inhalers. A paramedic the training is much longer. It's nine months in school. They have to do 450 hours in the hospital. And then they have to do another 100 to 200 hours in a department under another paramedic. That's their field internship, and those are a lot more advanced skills. It's advanced airways, being able to give a
Drugs.
wide array of medicines in the back of the truck. We do 12-lead EKGs in the back of the truck, in the back of the ambulance. We do a lot of, we are a rolling emergency room that the paramedic works under a licensed doctor for a wide array of advanced skills.
Defibrillation.
Defibrillation,
Yep.
Tracheotomies.
And they're the highest level of pre-hospital care that can be provided. And so every medication, every invasive procedure, as far as being able to put a breathing tube down somebody's throat, to putting a needle in somebody's chest if they have air in their chest, to IVs, to having to drill an IV into somebody's bone if you can't get an IV, that is all performed at the paramedic level. And nobody else at any level below that can perform those skills.
So before they do those procedures, do they need to get the approval of an MD?
Not-
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
it's basically under our statewide treatment protocols. that we all work under. We do have a medical director that basically tells us what we can do and what we can't on the Cape, but also if the paramedic is unsure of something or wants to deviate from something, they can get on the radio and talk with a medical director or physician online if need be.
Thank you very much. Good explanation.
Any other questions? Well, I want to thank both of you very much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. I could not do my job without the support of you guys and the budget and town administration. It makes it a lot easier to do our jobs and give the personnel what they need next door.
Well, we
do their
appreciate
jobs.
all of your services.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Remembered one
Oh,
question.
Wait,
go ahead.
Peter.
One-
Are we getting more revenue from ambulances with all these extra costs?
We are not. Our revenue has decreased.
Can we?
So that's one thing that we should be looking at is what's the potential for the new Medicare, Medicaid rates, and should we increase them? Because I don't think we've increased them in recent
Since
times.
2014, we haven't
Right.
increased our rates, our ambulance billing rates. But it's also what we can recover in the Medicare, Medicaid rate that we can charge as much as we want, but they're only gonna give us so much, and
Yeah, they have what they call contractual allowances, so we got to take a look at that, and is it going to be worth it to do that?
And probably because of the demographics, the majority of the people here are on Medicare.
Well,
But
and
not
not only
in
that,
the summer.
but correct me if I'm wrong, Rich and the chief, we don't aggressively bill either for our residents. You know, we will do our best to recover the funds through the insurance, but if that is not possible, we don't then send to collections, aggressively bill, is that, and if I'm,
yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
and that's part of it, right? But I think we can all agree that that's part of living here and providing the services is that we don't aggressively bill to our own citizens.
But for people that are here in the summer that aren't on Medicare, that have a lot of money, they want to pay their bills, we could charge them a little
So
more.
You said that, we did.
I do know that our billing company that does the billing for the ambulances, they will, if it's gonna be paid under private insurance, I think they go a couple extra steps to see if we can't recover some of that money.
Right, but I wonder, should the fees be higher just to catch those people that?
I think that needs to be
Can afford it.
evaluated. I think there are a lot of other, your concern is a concern that we've received emails from our other departments, our neighboring departments. There's some discussion about that. Is it time to raise rates? Because
Very good.
many other departments haven't either.
I was looking at some of the other departments because it is a discussion that has been brought out from the fire chiefs, but we're really kind of right in line, if not on the higher tier of our neighboring towns.
Mary Kate has a question.
No, I don't see anybody that has any questions. Okay, I'm sorry, Kate, I see your hand up there.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you, everyone, for the great questions and the great conversation. I'm just putting on my HR hat a little bit here, and I think we need to be careful about having discretionary rates for certain people. It just could get us into, it's a slippery slope. I'll just say that.
So
And
I-
I think the town attorneys probably would have something to say about that as well. So,
Suggesting that.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't, they wouldn't be different rates. It would be-
No, they wouldn't, yeah.
okay, I just wanted to clarify that because that's what I was hearing. And so, thank you. That's good.
Okay, thank you very
Okay.
much.
Right, thank you.
For coming, thank you for spending your time with us and for your service. Okay, let me see, let me move this. Okay. I'm looking at the agenda, and we have, number 5 on the agenda is the Wastewater Infrastructure Investment Fund surcharge discussion, and Carolyn is here representing the Affordable Housing Trust. And if you'd like to come up and sit, and I don't know, I know you read your little comments at the CPA meeting last night, so you might want to read that again, since I was the only one there last night, so.
Okay. Thank you for having me provide some comments and to be here tonight. I'm Carolyn McPherson, and as some of you know me, I'm the chair.
Excuse me, is it on? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
I'm the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, and would say a diehard advocate for affordable housing in Eastham. The topic of affordable housing is important to me personally and from my extensive professional background. For example, I used to run the largest homeless and domestic violence shelter in the state of Virginia. And so I was dealt with affordable housing firsthand and its impacts. Make no mistake that Eastham is facing a continuing, deep, and very impactful housing crisis. This is reflected in Eastham's strategic plan and the housing production plan. One key statistic that I would share with you, Mary, I think alluded to this in the very beginning of your meeting, is the measure of housing burden. That's a technical term. A generally accepted indicator is the measure of the percent of housing costs compared to income. So what percent of your income do you pay for housing? A household is considered housing burdened if they spend more than 30% on housing, more than 30%. Because at 30%, that means that the rest of your income that goes for food, for transportation, for medical care, for education, for clothing, all the other sort of essential things that you need, that's not a lot. The Census Bureau estimates that I just was able to obtain in 2024 for Eastham, the households who are housing burdened is 41%. So that's almost half, not quite half. So if you look around this table, I'm calculating there were 8 people sitting around the table, maybe 3 people here, and I'm not picking on individuals at all, but 3 people might be, in fact, in this category where they're spending more of their income on housing than we should realistically hope that they do. Currently, Eastham has the lowest rate by far of the percentage of housing that is affordable on the Lower and Outer Cape. It's not just a competition in terms of who has the best number, but it affects our ability to recruit and retrain staff for the town, teachers. The chief was just talking about trying to recruit firemen and have them stay, and housing is a good example of one of the components of that. The callback, if they can't live within a certain distance, they can't be on the callback roster. So housing affects directly, I think, the fire and police. And it also affects the workers in our service and tourist economy. We all see the daily parade of cars to and from on Route 6 if you go in the morning and the late afternoon and seeing people coming and going. It affects our ability to provide housing for seniors as they want to downsize and stay in the town that they love. And it affects our kids and grandkids. I see that firsthand. I have 3 grandkids in college, in Nauset High School, and they all say that they don't think they can afford to live here. As you can see, I just want to set the stage for housing as an issue. The Affordable Housing Trust discussed the issue of the proposed change in CPA funding at length. We had several meetings where we talked about it. Rich and Jackie were both very good at coming to help explain it to us and to discuss it with us. We have concerns about the loss of the CPA funding. The trust members respect that wastewater is significant for the growth in town, needed environmentally, clearly that's true, and important to support housing and the increase in housing. Therefore, the trust took a vote and said we will not oppose the proposed change to the CPA funding in order to support the creation of the WIIF. However, we do have some comments. One of the issues we have with the proposed change is the loss of state CPA match. As you know, the CPA funding that the town collects through taxes is matched at the state level. It's complicated, and Rich is a much better, and Mary, who's chair of the CPC committee, understanding that, but there's two parts to it, and it gets complicated to try to predict in advance what it is. But we think that the town will need to, having an ROI on the CPC funding, CPA funding, is, we think, an important part of the sustaining of the work that the CPC committee does. The town will need to find a way to make up the loss of that state funding, particularly since it seems that the financing for the wastewater project is anticipated to be at 0 or very low interest rates, while the ROI for the lost state funding is upwards of 10%. So you're giving up 10% to create the WIIF. The Affordable Housing Trust anticipates the need for major funding for housing programs and projects going forward. As the housing coordinator and town staff have the ability to assist in the creation of new programs, like the recent Lease to Locals program that was adopted and has already had good success at creating some modest amount of new housing, there will be the need for funding for these new programs. As town center and tea time projects are developed, there will be need for project sustaining contributions from the Affordable Housing Trust and the town. These projects are significant, large, and very financially complicated. They will take public, private, and perhaps nonprofit partnerships. Without the town and Affordable Housing Trust funding, the projects may not move forward in the way envisioned in the town's strategic planning. As you may recall, with the village at Nauset Green, even with all the planning and collaboration, at the very last minute, literally the week before they were supposed to do the final closing, the Affordable Housing Trust had to make a sizable contribution in order to bring the project forward. If not, the project would have been stopped because they wouldn't have been able to complete the closing because they would have been short an amount of funding. One of the values that the Affordable Housing Trust brings to the town related to housing issues is the ability to be nimble and flexible to meet financial needs, all within the guidelines adopted at town meetings and with CPA funding requirements. The wastewater project will contribute to the implementation of new housing by providing town wastewater rather than requiring a developer to plan for private infrastructure, which you were talking about that earlier in terms of the AI systems and how expensive they are, and you can imagine for a large project what those costs are. A caution, however, is that the new housing developments, particularly Northeast Tam, need to be clearly calculated into the project wastewater capacity for the town and as approved by DEP. If it should happen that the CPA funding is lowered and the demand for new housing exceeds the town wastewater capacity, there may be an impact on new projects' financial feasibility. Hillary and Jackie and Rich assure us that the planning that's being done will include the capacity for the new developments in town center and tea time that are contemplated. But you don't know until you get there whether that's exactly the way it'll work out. It should be noted that in the data that Rich has handed out in the past about past CPA project funding, so past projects that have been funded, there's a little bit of a comment that needs to be made about the past funding for housing projects. Beginning 4 years ago, the CPC, and I was on the committee at the time that we did this, made a decision to suspend annual funding for the Affordable Housing Trust. Instead, a CPC reserve for housing was created within the CPA funding financials. This was directly related to the concept that the big projects, the tea time and town center and perhaps other big projects that were coming down the line, and so CPC was reserving to support those projects at the CPC level rather than the Affordable Housing Trust level. So on the list of funded projects, this practice minimizes the apparent funding for past housing projects. It was a sound business principle to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that when you look at that data, it understates the reserves being stated for housing. Rich and Jackie have been very good at discussing with the trust the hopes for future funding that might be made available to the trust from other sources to offset the loss in CPA funding. We all know budgets are tight. You're dealing with that firsthand almost more than anyone in the town other than Rich and Jackie and the staff. But so the ability to be able to have additional town funding beyond the CPA funding, we look forward to being able to find ways to do that. There are some sources that perhaps that could happen to. So I'm just here to say that we won't oppose what has been proposed, but it has the potential to have some impact on funding that is desperately needed for affordable housing projects in the town. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone might like to make or have. I'm sorry for just reading this, but I wanted to be sure I was clear and concise and said all the right things.
Does anybody have any questions of Carolyn regarding the Affordable Housing Trust and the WIIF program? And I just want to comment, first I want to thank you for last night for coming to the CPA committee meeting, and also for coming tonight. And you did say that the Affordable Housing Trust did not oppose.
We do not oppose it. We didn't support it.
Right, but you're not
We're not
opposing it.
opposing it.
And that vote was 4-0.
It was 4-0.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
So,
Mary, I'll just add the same commentary I added last night.
yeah, sure.
Just a couple little things. To Carolyn's point, what we're putting at, risk, so to speak, is with full implementation, which is 2 years, so not next year. It'll be some impact next year, but I'll just focus on the full year implementation. It's on the current projections with the current proposal of a 1.5% reduction in CPA to go to the 1.5% to the WIIF is about $140,000 loss in matching funds. But, and this is what I mentioned last night, and I will follow through on, the discussion with the CPC was in our financial plans for wastewater, it relies on $600,000 even for the life of the project. And so that current projection, with a loss of the 140 or so, in year one provides about $650,000 based on the most updated data. And 5 years from now, over 700 and some odd thousand. Because it increases every year. As the levy increases, the 3% of a levy gets to be a bigger number. And so what I'm going to do when we get the budget sorted and settled and I know what the property tax levy is going to be for this year, I will re-estimate that. And it will be something less than 1.5. So our recommendation will be, because we only counted on 600,000 in the plan, and so that's what I will adjust it. I don't want to say that this is a number, but perhaps it might be in the 1.2% range. Not significantly different, but less than the 1.5 that we currently put on the table. And so there's that.
And then would you
And then the
increase the CPA thing to by the same 0.3%?
right. So we'll keep
Total is
the
3.
3%, but so it wouldn't be, using my talking points here, it would be 1.2 and 1.8.
1.8, 1.8 for CPA, 1.2 for WIIF.
Right, for example.
Okay, right.
And then the other thing that I think we could commit to is 5 years from now, we'll know with certainty exactly where we are. And that is an opportunity. We could do it at any time, but to me, 5 years seems appropriate. Reevaluate exactly where we are. Did we get any other grants, for example, that offset some of the costs and mitigate the costs? Does the 1.2% grow into something more than 600,000? So whatever those results are, gives us an opportunity to adjust it again in the future. Nothing says we can't add it back. So, that's not guaranteed that town meeting would agree to that, but in my mind, that would be, my approach. If we were to implement something, let's kind of agree that when the project's done and we have some clarity as to what this looks, let's make sure that we revisit that again and get this money back on the table so we don't forego as much on the state match.
And Roy, I see your hand up.
You're muted, Roy.
You're muted.
Still muted.
You're still muted.
There you go.
I do not have a
Yeah.
question. I apologize.
You had your hand up there on your screen.
Did I?
Yeah, it's,
Okay. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Goodbye, hand.
Mary, just so you know, with this new Zoom AI, if you wave your arm like this,
Yeah.
sometimes the hand gets raised.
Okay.
It's very smart. It's smarter than we are.
Smart AI, okay. So as Carolyn and I discussed earlier, we did have our CPA meeting last night, and we had a lengthy conversation about it since it is affecting the CPA income and how we've been operating in the past. And I just want to read a motion that was made at the meeting last night and was seconded. And I'm going to read the motion that we passed, with the CPA committee passed. Mary Shaw made a motion for the CPAC to endorse the Wastewater Infrastructure Investment Fund, parentheses WIIF, package, to provide a percentage of CPA monies to generate $600,000 in the first year and to reduce the CPA percentage accordingly. That was seconded by Dan Koppelman. 6 were in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 person was absent. The select board might wish to know what our position is on this issue. And I don't know how you wish to proceed, given the situation.
it's going to be a warrant article, right?
Yes, it will be a warrant article.
Right, so it would be an article, it remains to be seen if it will be an article, 2 separate articles for the CPA reduction and a separate article for the WIIF addition, or if we can somehow combine them.
Are there any?
But the select board is, we'd be asking them to put it on the warrant, and I'm sure they'll be looking for your recommendation or your input.
And I think it became clear at the CPC committee yesterday that terminology sometimes is important. The CPA funding is a percentage of taxes, and it shows up on the tax bill as a line item, which currently is 3%. There would be, if passed at town meeting, there would be a new line item separate from the CPA. They're not really related. We're talking about them in relativity so that the net result of the real estate tax would be that they would balance out to 3%. But they're 2 separate funds. They run independently.
I think
and they'd
the
be 2
tax bill
separate
was
line
on
items.
CPAC, a dollar figure for the
Right.
taxes, and then WIIF, a
Right.
dollar figure.
So just to be clear, they're really separate things, but as Rich said, because we're doing them in lockstep together to keep the percentage of taxes no greater than it is today, it hopefully would be one warrant article, so the rationale for one and the other could be linked together. And I think that's important because 5 years from now, if we do get the opportunity to go back, hopefully, and raise the CPA funding percentage back because the WIIF needs.
Increase the CPA
Right.
percentage and decrease the
Right,
percentage.
that same logic of keeping them related but separate would be very important to help for the townspeople to understand what was happening.
Do other people have any questions on the issue we're discussing here today?
I just think it's important that when we use initials for things, people may not understand what those initials stand for. So I have here Wastewater Infrastructure Investment Fund. It is a big mouthful, but referring to it as WIIF, people may not understand what that is. And so I think it's important to spell it out.
Yeah, it's spelled out in the motion.
Oh, good. And also if it ends up on the tax bills, I don't know how much space there is on our tax bills, but it's probably a good idea to spell it out on there too. So,
Do people feel comfortable in making a vote on this, or would you like to think about it and
If it's
discuss
going to be
it?
a warrant article, why wouldn't we vote on it then?
say that
I think
again.
I think the select board is interested in our position.
So are you looking for a sense of the group, Mary, or do you want a
Yeah.
motion?
Well, Mary, Fred's got a good point, because usually the way our meetings are set up, you've got meetings to review warrant articles, and those will happen before the select board takes their vote. So, I guess to their point, Fred, is no urgency at the moment. We can brief and update the select board, and when they go to take their vote, you'll likely have yours done.
I can present this, I can present the statement from CPA to the select board when they discuss it.
As part of their update, and then the finance committee will take a vote at perhaps some point in the future when we're talking about the articles, and
When the warrant is, when the
Presented, yeah.
warrant is printed. Okay. Any other questions on the wastewater infrastructure investment fund? Okay, I'm looking at the the agenda, excuse me. Is there any new business? I don't have any new business. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Is there any new business? I'm on to old business, the capital project committee update. And the only thing I have down here is just an announcement to remind people that there is a ribbon cutting on March 14th at 1 o'clock at the high school. I don't know if you have any other comments to make. I'm on to 7B, the school efficiency and regionalization study. And several of us did attend the workshop at the high school last week. And we were told, there was a question about it, and we were told that their report should be coming to the select board shortly. So I don't know if the select board has seen anything, right? No.
not yet, but
No. The regional district, there was a meeting on February 2nd on that, and I'm assuming Jerry and,
Oh, it wasn't for the community.
wasn't for the agreement?
But it was on,
For the
it was just for the regional, the district subcommittee.
Oh.
The town's people weren't part of that meeting.
Oh, okay.
I did watch some of it. It was, they're just trying to figure out, the district lawyer presented a whole grid of what the towns had suggested to be included in the agreement. And she tried to pick out the ones that weren't allowed by law, which were several of them, many of them.
In the agreement, you're saying?
Yeah, some of the town ideas apparently aren't allowed. So then they took up discussion on the ones that were allowed, and they may or may not want to implement.
Okay.
So it's in the works.
It's moving along.
It is moving.
And several of us, 4 of us, did attend, I'm looking at 7D, the Nauset Regional School Budget Update. We attended the workshop last week at the Nauset Regional High School. And they gave out some information, and without going into a long song and dance, we still have some issues associated with the cost of education, in particular, the special ed costs. And the budgets were still preliminary, so we don't have a final report.
I just want to let you know that I did follow up with, I couldn't make it last week, but I did follow up with Bill, met with him yesterday, and one of the interim business officials from the district. And so I'm going to get all the details on the preschool and the integrated SPED class and the central office charges all to the elementary school. And we're going to kind of drill down on some of those. So, so working with Bill on tightening that budget up. And
So I don't have anything else on the 4 items listed under old business. That I did send out Jackie's most recent town manager report, And Jackie's here.
Back there?
Does anybody have any questions for Jackie on her town manager's report? I just have one question, Jackie, on what's the status of 580 Massasoit Road?
Right now, the architect is working on final design plans that include the housing unit, and we should be seeing that sometime later this winter.
Okay, so it's moving along.
It's moving, yeah.
Yeah. Is there still the possibility of having housing on the top floor, or is that?
Yes.
Oh, because originally, when we were talking about the structure, we said that we couldn't do it because of the,
Right, and that's when we kind of sent them back to the drawing board to say, this is how much money we have, what can we do? And they've refined some of the scope, and we're hopeful.
yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions for Jackie on the town manager's report? Okay, I have, the next meeting is scheduled for February 12th, next week, Thursday at 4 o'clock. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Patty? Do I have a second? Roy? I have Roy. Roy put his name.
Get overruled.
I got overruled. I was looking I was looking at that direction.
That's fine.
All in favor of adjourning? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Roy, Kate, Paul, Steve. Thank you, 9-0. And I have.